Good afternoon, guys. Good afternoon, all. So we have gathered for another webinar series conducted by 99X Technology. So today we are going to discuss about quality assurance. I think we are waiting till some other audience to be joined. So just give us a few seconds. We will connect it back.
Hello everyone, welcome to the webinar presented by 99X Technology. Today's our topic is Become a Quality and a Business Enabler. So in this webinar, we are going to talk about the importance of the quality assurance and how you can improve that to your project or product in order to improve your quality, overall quality. So I'm not alone in this webinar. I have my colleague over here, Tarinder. How are you?
I'm doing good. How are you, Jamal?
I'm doing good. So let us start this proceeding by introducing ourselves. You can start with you.
Yes. As said by Jamal, I'm Tharindra Jayamaha, currently working as an associate QA architect at 99X Technology. So yeah, that's about me.
Yes. So my name is Chamal Pereira. I am also working at 99X Technology. I'm working as an associate quality assurance lead. I have over 6 years of experience in this field. So we can start the presentation and webinar. So if you do have any questions, you can send it to us. So at the end of webinar, if time permits us, we will try to take them and answer as much as we can. So Tarinder, we talk about quality assurance, quality engineering, so many things. So what is actually quality means to you?
For me, Jamal, when I say I have a quality product, if the product that I have can satisfy my needs, I would call it as a quality product.
Yes, true. You're absolutely true, Tarinder. Quality is basically the ability of your product to able to satisfy your users. So that leads me to ask another question from you, Tarinder. So what is quality assurance to you?
For me, quality assurance is kind of a process that you make sure that the product that you're going to deliver contains the desired quality expectation of the customer.
Right.
So I would call it as the quality assurance, the process of doing that.
Right. So yeah, you're true again, Tarinder. It's a process that demonstrates your products able to satisfy your end users. So basically, whenever we buy something, we need a quality product.
Yeah.
So by doing the quality assurance, we are making sure that product is in a good quality. Right. So have you done any quality assurance in your life?
Yes, at my project, I do quality assurance.
Not in the project, in your real life, have you done anything?
Well, I can't think of exactly whether I have done quality assurance in my life, but what do you mean by quality assurance in life?
Right. Now, for example, I guess you are using a mobile phone.
Yeah.
Yes. So when you're buying a mobile phone, what are the things that you consider?
Yes. If I want to buy a mobile phone, basically I just go and check the reviews online, and I check with my friends who already use that phone.
Okay.
And I check the configurations and I compare it with the other mobile phones which are available in the market.
Right.
Okay, yeah, I do quality assurance when I buy a mobile phone.
Exactly. So doing the comparisons, reading the reviews, you are exactly doing the quality assurance steps of the quality assurance. Same as when you're buying a motor car, Sarindra, it's when we are like to check a mechanic who knows about the car and try to evaluate the car. So because we need to buy a good quality product. So you said that you are a quality assurance architect by profession.
Yeah.
What exactly you do at your job?
I also had kind of a doubt whether the other people have deserved, whether they see the real meaning of quality assurance.
Mm-hmm.
Because when I was having a chat with one of my new colleagues who recently joined our team.
Okay.
So during the discussion, we were having a tea, and during the discussion, he was asking, okay, Thalindra, what are you doing in the project? So I said, okay, I'm in the QA team. And suddenly that guy was telling, oh, you guys do testing. So I was like, okay, so the meaning that they have taken from the QA is that they think that we are doing just testing.
Just a testing.
Another example was that Chamal, that I recently attended a particular conference.
Okay.
So basically there the presenter mentioned something like this, which again confused me. The thing that presenter said was that if the developer does not make any bugs, the QA guy does not have any job. So again, I was like, is it just finding defect?
Right.
Is quality assurance. Another scenario was that in the project meeting, so I was having a discussion with the development team members.
Okay.
And during the discussion, I told them the importance of doing testing and just checking the functionality. So I asked the development team, okay, before you give a kind of a release to the QA team, just make sure you guys are doing some functional testing on the feature that you have worked. So then we can reduce the back and forth communication.
Sure.
But what they were asking is that, okay, if the development guys are going to do the functional testing, what will the QA guys be doing? So again, they think, okay, the QA team is doing QA testing. So that lead me to think, why is this happening? So basically, I found one thing that whenever we come to the interviews normally, so when we hire some people, we do interviews. So normally, once interview we come to the session, we ask, okay, what are you guys doing currently in your project? So most of the time they say, okay, I write test cases, I execute test cases, I find bugs, and I log them.
They just do the testing.
Yes, basically the testing cycle they mentioned. So where I see that most of the time we tend to do only the testing part, though we call as quality assurance, like we are just showing that we are testers. Okay, but quality assurance is kind of a process which is involved in many areas. Maybe Chamal, you can explain about that.
Yes, so quality assurance, Sarindra, involves in everywhere. So it doesn't matter which methodology that you use to develop or design the product. It could be Agile, it could be Kanban, Scrum, or even it could be Waterfall. So quality assurance involves in each and every phase. So whatever the methods that you use, you probably have common phases like this.
Yeah.
Could be idea generation, requirement engineering, development, testing to production. So QA is involved in everywhere. Now this connects me to another common misconception that we have in the industry, that most of us believe that quality assurance is testing, which is not true.
Yeah.
In industry, everyone believes that when someone say testing, when someone say QA, quality assurance, that is testing, like the example that you mentioned. So let me try to break that myth. The first thing is, Tarendra, misunderstandings that could happen in any phase of your software development lifecycle.
Of course.
It could happen from the requirement phase. It could even happen from the idea generation phase. Right. So let's take the first one. Having a bad idea is the worst thing that could happen, because customer might come up with something which is may not be the best idea that for a product or a project. So as a product development team, it's our duty to make sure that they are having a good idea. So make sure that idea is a quality one. So how can you make sure that the quality of that idea is a good one, or make sure that idea is a quality one?
Yeah.
There are a couple of ways that we can do.
Mm-hmm.
For example, a customer can come with an idea and say he wants to develop an application. Rather than just going to the development phase, we can probably do a market research and do a competitor analysis and find out the similar applications, similar projects that already using that idea.
Yeah.
So there's no point of developing the same idea
if it is already existing.
If it is already exists, exactly. So we can do the analysis, potential market, and get the feedback, surveys, and by doing certain things, we are make sure that the idea, the very beginning of the software development life cycle, has a quality. That is how you make sure. That is how you assure the quality of the idea.
Yeah, true.
Sure. So the second phase is the requirement engineering phase. Now that is also pretty important phase, Salendra, because having a bad requirement is also a very worst thing to happen. Because if you have a requirement wrong, then you could end up with something designing a very bad thing. Now, for example, your customer might need a simple knife, but if you have a bad requirement, you could have ended up with developing a Swiss knife, which is not what the customer wants. So how can you make sure that you are capturing the correct requirements or the ideal requirements? You can probably go with the prototyping. So you develop a prototype and you show that to the customer and ask the feedback from the customer. If the customer likes it, then you continue with the prototype. And after 2 or 3 sprints, you give another sprint, another prototype. Then you get the feedback. By doing this continuously, you are making a correct requirement, so correct product at the end of your the cycle. Right. The third phase, the important phase, the development. So software code is written by humans, so we tend to make mistakes.
Yeah.
So we need to make sure the development phase is also maintaining the certain qualities. So how can you make sure that the development phase has qualities?
So basically, with the help of developers, they can do the code reviews.
Exactly.
So unit testing, integration testing.
Right. So by doing the unit testing, integration testing, you are making sure that whatever the code that you write has a certain qualities. And also you can do the reviews, architecture reviews, code reviews, peer reviews. By doing these certain things, you are assuring the quality of the development phase. Right. Next thing is the obvious phase, the testing phase. So I'm not going to talk about this because quality assurance is a testing. So already knows. The misconception is also about that. This last one is the production. So you do the idea generation, you get the requirement, you did the development, and you do the testing, and you put it to the production. Now your system is on live.
Yes.
So can you just chill and wait after putting it into the production?
No.
Of course no, you can't, because you need to make sure to maintain the quality even in the production phase. You need to constantly monitor it. If there's a problem, you need to maintain or do the different things in order to have the quality. So Tarindra, if you look at closely, I use the word quality assurance in each and every phases.
Yes.
From the idea generation to requirement to the production phase, I use the word quality assurance. So quality assurance is not the testing. In fact, testing is the subset of the quality assurance. Quality assurance is the bigger picture. So that's why I said that the misconception that we had is having that quality assurance testing is wrong.
Yeah. So I understood one thing also, Chamal, that according to your presentation, so that the quality assurance is something that everyone should involve with, not just the QA team.
QA team, exactly.
So development guys, they have the developers that they can do the code reviews, and also the quality assurance is something that responsibility of the entire team, not just a part of the team.
Right. It's not longer a tester's job actually.
Yes. So basically, Chamal, though we do all these stuff, we still find bugs to the live environment.
Sure.
So basically the thing is assumptions. So as an example, if you take an example like this, so if we are going to represent the scenarios we test in this yellow cycle, Okay, circle. And the scenarios invoked by the actual user in this circle.
Right.
And the scenarios which has actual bugs in this circle. You can see that there are three areas which are not intersect with each other. Okay. If you take this particular portion, that means this is where the defect comes in, because customers are using this area and we haven't done testing in that area and it has bugs.
Right.
So these are the bugs which comes as issues in the live environment. And as you can see, there's a portion that we do testing but not used by the customer.
Yes.
And there's a portion that customers are involving it but we haven't done the testing. So by looking at that, I feel, Chamal, sometimes we are testing the application, we are just giving the application assuming that customer will use it in the way that we think.
Yes.
But actually, when you take the application, it can be totally different.
Yes.
Because we are expecting the user will use in the design way, but the user experience can be something totally different that they use in a different way.
They might use in a completely different
way. So sometimes our assumptions might be wrong.
Yes.
This is where we need to observe the user behavior. So basically, just developing an app and giving it to the customer is not enough. You have to observe them, how they use it and how they will do it. So there are two common methods, which is, if you Google it, you can find it. So I will just go through that. So the first one is control observation, where you try to get the end users into a lab environment and you give them steps. Okay, go and register a user. Then they will do the necessary steps. And you observe their pain points, what they do, and whether they can find the buttons easily.
Okay.
So you observe. So this is one of the method that they use normally, but there is a disadvantage called Hawthorne effect, where you find that the end user will not do exactly what they want when that person feels he is observing. Same like when you are in the classroom, if the teacher is there, you make sure that you behave good.
Yes.
But the teacher is not there, then only you can see your actual behavior.
Right.
So the same thing happens here. So the other way is that naturalistic observation, where you go out, you take random people, give your application, ask them to use it without giving the exact step, and they are observing how they use it. This is also a good way, but there are some disadvantages that sometimes you are finding it difficult to get the correct sample. Because if your application is used by 100,000 users, but if you do one or two samples, that will not be enough. So you can't replicate, and representative sample is not enough.
Right.
The last one is that it is hard to manipulate because of the external behaviors. As an example, if it's a rainy day, if it's a sunny day, or if the person is in a hurry to catch the train, so the way that they use the application is totally different.
Right.
So that will come to an effect. So now we see, though we discuss about these things, Chamal, most of the time our development team is in one location and our customers are in another location.
Right.
So we find it difficult to do this stuff. Right. This is where we can do something to avoid this scenario. So what do you suggest, Chamal?
I think the personas could come in a handy situation like this. Do you know what personas are, Sananda?
Personas, I have heard the term, but I don't know exactly what it is.
Yes, so personas are actually a fictional representation of your actual end users.
Okay.
So even though they are fictional, they are based on true facts.
Okay.
Personas answers 3 points or talks to 3 points. One is the actual user's goals. So what the users are going to do with this. And the behaviors, what type of user behaviors this actual user group processes. And third one is the characteristics, what type of user would be. So if we know about these 3 points, then we can create a personas.
You mean to say that we are trying to find kind of person, what kind of goals that person wants from our application, their objectives of using this application, and their characteristics. What kind of a person?
Yes.
Right. Okay, cool.
So the UX professionals, they're already using this concept, the persona concept, for their designing processes. So we also can use that for the testing or software development, even in the requirement phases.
Okay.
Right. Let's talk about how we can create personas. There are actually 2 ways that you can do it.
Okay.
One is the most obvious thing, the talk. You go and talk to your end users. and you ask very human questions. What I mean by human questions are, you don't ask complex questions. You ask from the very primitive questions by asking what are you expecting to by using this system? How would you use this system? Very human question, very simple question. Then you can get what actual user wants. The second way is envisioning. You and your team and your stakeholders maybe then all get together and think what type of users would use a system like this. You envisioning the actual users. So if you have a product or a project which is matured, maybe you can use the first one because then you know about your actual user group. If it is a startup or the new project, then the second method would be the ideal way to go. Envisioning would be the ideal way to go.
Yeah.
So I'll talk more about these questions that I talk about. So I talk that you need to have these very simple questions. So one way that you can do is you can send something like a research form in a questionnaire and asking these questions, because getting these details is very important in order to create a successful or good persona. So what we did was, in our situation, we created a persona by asking this question. Once we get this data, we actually represent them in a nice, appealing way. So once we read this data, the persona, then we can get an understanding about what this user is going to do. For example, this user is a sales user. So if it is a sales user, he normally frequently moves here and there. So if we design a desktop application for this type of user, then it won't work.
Yes, he can't use it.
He can't use it. The ideal solution would be
a mobile
application, of course. So when we talk to this user, he said that his intentions are just to create new sales, view the overdue sales, update the stakeholders about the sales details. Those are his goals. So it's actually the requirements. If you look at closely,
yes,
you can use a requirement to gather this requirement as these goals.
Yes.
So Tarindra, this actually can lead into us to do the designing and development stages as well.
Yes. Now we talked about the personas. How can we do? How can we incorporate it to design and development cycle, Chamal?
Yes. There's a concept called persona-driven development. Have you heard about it?
I have heard. I have read about it, but I haven't tried it.
Yes. So what basically happens is you put your users first. This approach is based on user-first approach. So you think about your users, what their pain points would be, what type of their users that your system is going to use even before you write a single line of code, you think about your users. So you incorporate these personas into the requirement phases, even the idea generation phases. So then you can have a better picture. So basically you put yourself into the customer's shoes.
Yeah.
Right. So today we are going to talk about quality engineering. So we'll talk about how we can incorporate into software testing phases.
Okay.
Let's talk about it with an example. For example, let's take this one, employee management system. So every company has an employee management system. Now, the system might be using management level people. It could be used by HR personnel and could be used by employees. So how we can make sure that these users can have a better quality or better experience by using this HR system? So what we can do is we can create personas for each and every user groups.
Yeah.
And we can do the testing. When it comes to the testing, we think like these users and we do the testing.
Okay.
Right. So now, for example, the management level people, they might not use the system in a very systematic way. So they might use the system in a quick way. They probably use the quickest workflows. So then they will get the result. So I'll tell you one way that you can do this in a more fun way, Dharendra. So rather than just creating the personas, we can even cartoonize them to make the testing assignment fun. So for example, now you can introduce these guys into the personas.
Okay.
Right. So what would be the senior management level people would match to these characters?
I would say the person in the left corner.
Yes. So the senior manager would be the Nick, say, and we can have the HR guy as the Black Widow. And other ones are Flash and Hulk.
So employees you categorize into two cores: senior employees like someone, okay, and young employees.
So when it comes to the testing assignments, what we can do is the testers can do is they can think like these users. So for example, what would be a typical Monday morning would look like, Tarinder?
I wish I could stay at home.
Yes, so we are all bored and we don't like probably lazy people. So when it comes to senior employees, we can try and act like the Flash in that famous movie. So what we can do is we can probably, when it comes to entering a form, we can just type few things and we can have a chit chat to person next to our cubicle and see how application behaves. If the application behaves well, if the application responds to you after a couple of minutes, then we need to consider it. And for example, say we can ask some of our tester to try to enter the invalid data into the input fields, or try to enter the data in a very fast way, in a very quick way, and see how application behaves. If the application behaves well, then the application has a good quality.
Yeah.
Also, now for the senior manager guy, now I said that he's a very impatient user. He used the application in a more quick way. So what does that mean? That means we need to consider performance of the application. Yes. So this is altogether a way that we can use personas in a cartoonized manner in order to cater the better quality and make the testing even more fun or interactive.
Yeah, so what I understood from your slide is, Chamal, that so when we are testing, there are some people who just need some time to enter the form.
Right.
So in that case, we need to check about the session timeouts and other details, and they might use some features to locate the stuff, like maybe some zoom in effects or something like that.
Yes.
And there can be some users who are trying to hack the application, so we need to consider about the security of the application. There can be users who need to do the things very quickly. So performance and shortcuts and user experience need to be considered.
Exactly.
Okay, cool. Yeah. So when you're saying like that, Chamal, I think I have done this, but I didn't know this term. So we have the same kind of case study. So this is an application we use in our project. So we perfectly developed this application and gave it to the customer. But customer was coming up with some issues, saying that they wanted shortcuts. The thing is, then later when we were observing them, we found the customer is like the bank guys. So basically, have you been to banks?
Yes, of course.
Basically, they don't use mouse, right? Yes. They use shortcuts, they use tabs, enter keys and arrow keys. So same like that, our customer was using that kind of approach. They were not, they don't use the mouse usually. We didn't know that. So that is why we didn't implement shortcuts. So they wanted us to have shortcuts. Now, okay, we found it and we implemented. Now, after implementing shortcuts, Chamal, we had another issue. As an example, if you see the screen, you can see that there are two buttons to go to the previous screen and the next screen.
Right.
So, as a shortcut, we implemented it in this way that we implemented control less than icon and control greater than icon. Right. But once we give it to the customer, they were coming up with so many questions saying that does not work. Then we found our customers are in Norwegian locale, and most of their keyboards have both the keys in same key, both the characters.
Okay.
So this is another place that first we found that they need shortcuts. Second, we didn't think that they are using the Norwegian locale. So there we found that they are using the same key.
Right.
So again, we had to come up with a solution.
Yes.
So we wanted to introduce more shortcuts. So we used the number pad of the laptop.
Right.
So like control number pad 1, likewise. Again issue, they said that they can't use these functions because their laptops did not have number pads.
Number pads, okay.
So these are some examples, Jamal. We found that we haven't understood the customer correctly.
Right.
The way that they use it, the locale they use it, what kind of devices they use it. Due to that, we had to go through so many iterations and give so many builds.
Right. So if you knew about your customers beforehand, you would have
avoid this stuff.
Yes. Right. So Tharindra, now this connects us to the feature releases or the new way of doing these things, or how to identify your user groups and what you can do with that.
Yes.
So have you heard about the dark launching?
Dark launching term I have heard, but I am not sure about that. What is dark launching?
Right. So dark launching is, Sarindra, the new features are gradually releasing to a selected predefined set of users, not to the entire public. So maybe a 1% of your users or some limited numbers.
Okay.
If we get a good positive feedback, then we gradually release it to the other people.
Oh, I have seen this in Facebook.
Exactly.
So sometimes I don't get some features, but my friends are getting the features. But later only I get.
Yes.
Cool. So that means they are just releasing it for some kind of user group, and they validate it. And if there is a positive reply, they roll it out to the other users as well.
Yes.
Okay.
It's easy to use because it depends on the feature flag or the toggle. So if the feedbacks are positive, then you use the feature toggle to continue.
Right. Otherwise, you switch it off.
Switch it off. Exactly.
Cool.
So
so what will happen if we don't follow this kind of method?
yes. So same kind of thing happened for the Google a couple of years ago. So in fact, what happened was they introduced this button next to in their send button in the Gmail mail composition window, where when you hit that button, the orange button, it inserted a mic drop animation to your email. So they didn't test this feature, but they rolled out to everyone. So what happened was, someone with a serious email has used that button. So this was used for a funeral arrangement, and the one who sent that email used it, and it was a disaster.
So basically, that person wanted to convey a message of a funeral arrangement. By mistake, he pressed that button, and that animation went with the funeral notification.
It was a very disaster and bad public for the Google image.
Yeah.
So yeah, so that's why we need to make sure that when we are releasing the features, that we have to properly test it and release it.
We should have a way to switch it off or switch it on, or we have to test it some particular group.
Exactly.
Okay. Now the next one, Chamal, okay, now we have discussed about design, development, now releasing. Now after releasing, as you said, we can't chill out.
Yes.
So we can't just sit and wait, okay, it's gone production, now we can wait patiently.
Right.
Now next, what we have to do is, after going to the production, we have to check how the users are using it.
Yes.
Right? So this is just a case study that we have done. This is an application that we use in our project.
Mm-hmm.
So as you can see in the application, there are two things I have highlighted. So as an example, in the first screenshot, you can see that we can add comments using this button. And there's a second way.
Right.
You can go to actions and add comments.
Right.
Now we had a question, which method will the users be using?
Okay.
Because we don't need two ways.
Yes.
Only the optimal way can be implemented. Now we wanted to know what method is preferred by the users. Second scenario, in the login screen, we have added tooltip text for each field. But we had a question, do we really need to add tooltip text for each field?
Yes.
But we can't go and simply say customers, we need to remove that. But we need to validate it, how the actual users are using.
Yeah.
For doing this, we incorporated Google Analytics, and we observed how the users are using. Surprisingly, we saw the first scenario, 93% of the users are using only this button. Only 6% use this one.
Right.
So we found we can remove this option because it is not used by the customers.
Yes.
And the second scenario, only this much of people using the tooltip text for username and password, because it is obvious username and password
is there.
You don't need the tooltip text for that.
Yes.
So by showing these results to the customers, we were able to convince them to remove some features and just customize the UIs according to the actual user's behavior. Right. So those are the case studies that I have, Chaman, actually.
Yes. So from what I understand, Tharindra, so you can't just do the testing and survive anymore.
Yes.
Your testing is your core job.
Yes.
So you can't just do the core job and survive. So do you know what I-shaped members and T-shaped members are?
I-shaped member is something that you are doing what you are supposed to do.
Yes. But T-shaped members are you are doing or you are having a broad knowledge on the other areas as well. You probably know about the requirements well, you probably know about the designs well. So QA, the quality assurance professionals, need to be the T-shaped members in order to give a better quality or better things to their customers. So as a QA team, you can't just do the manual testing and so on. You need to know about the other non-functional testing as well. That is how you can become a T-shaped member.
Yes.
Not just knowing about the manual testing.
Yeah. So as an example, so basically, when you say you are a QA member, you have deep roots into the functional testing and other QA related stuff. Meanwhile, you should be able to play the proxy product owner role, where you act as the product owner and you should know the domain,
yes,
and the business requirement, and you should play the role of the Scrum Master sometimes, and you should play the role of the BA.
Yes.
You should play the role of the user experience engineer, because when you mean by quality, user experience is one of the aspects
yes,
that will come under quality.
Right.
So I think if we summarize the stuff that we're talking today, Chamal, you can go ahead with that.
Yes, so we talked about the quality assurance and the difference of the testing. We pointed out that testing is just a subset of quality assurance. It's not equal to testing. Then we talk about persona-driven development, Arendra. Then we talk about a little bit about the dark launching and the Google Analytics, and that what you can do in order to give a better quality to your users. Then we talk about that quality assurance need to be T-shaped members rather than the typical members or the I-shaped members.
And adding one more thing, Shama.
Yeah.
So quality assurance is not kind of a responsibility of a particular team.
Yes.
It's the entire project team's responsibility. So everyone has a responsibility to act as a QA person, quality assurance, part of the quality assurance.
Yes.
Right. So I think with that, we have done the things that we wanted to convey. So I think we can check whether we have any questions.
Yes. If we have any questions, we can take them now.
Seems we have one question. Yeah, I think if you can see the question. Yeah, the one question will be that most of the customer requirements are changing while development. So what would be the good approach? Yeah. This is something we also have most of the time that, right. So this is something that we mostly have in our projects also, that sometimes when we are developing, the customer requirements are getting changed.
Yes.
So in most of our project, what we do was that, so basically before jumping to the development, we always try to validate our approach with the customer. Finalizing the features. And we break the features into small chunks. So as an example, it's kind of an MVP model, that minimum viable product.
Yes.
So basically, if there's a huge feature that we have to deliver, we'll take a small chunk and we get the requirement from the customer and we show it to them, okay, this will be developed as follows. Is it correct? Once they give the sign off, okay, this is correct, we go ahead with the development. And we give it to them for testing.
Yes.
So basically, they have the time to validate it. And one issue that we found was that most of us see that sometimes when a developer gives us a build to test, we find a lot of issues there.
Yes.
So we wanted to find the root cause of this. The root cause is that sometimes when we are writing the acceptance criteria for a particular feature, customer is not sure about the feature. As an example, assume you want to implement a login screen. Customer will not say that the username and password should be mandatory, and you should be able to enter 8 characters. Likewise, they won't give you the technical exact details. Yes. They just say, I want a screen to enter login details. So when this is given to the developer, he will develop what he thinks.
Yes.
Not the what actually the customer wants. So to avoid this, what we did was, one approach we practice in our projects is that once we get the customer requirement, we sit to the customer and we elaborate it.
Right.
Like, okay, when you say you need a login screen, what are the fields you need?
Right.
What are the mandatory fields? What are the validations you want to put? What are do you need any other locales? Whether you need any languages in this? Like, we ask so many questions and we derive all the requirements. And we show it to the customer and we get it confirmed. Then once we give the confirmation, we put it as an acceptance criteria.
Right.
So indirectly, the developer, once that person develops the application, he has to, before he gives it to the QA guy for testing, he has to make sure that all the acceptance criteria are met.
Right.
So Chamal, by this way, actually indirectly the developer is doing the functional testing.
Functional testing, yes.
So once the feature is delivered to us, basically it is functionally tested.
Right.
Because we have put all the test scenarios there. Then what we have is, now we have time to do other testing, non-functional testing, observing how the users are using it, getting other requirements. So we have more time to do other testing work, not just the functional testing.
Right.
Yeah.
So just to summarize the answer for the question posed by Chandana, so what we did was we instantly we validate the requirement with the customer first and make sure that that is the finalized one. And because then only we go to the development and design phases.
So we make sure always the customer understand what we develop. Because if he does not have any idea, then only he come up with so many assumptions and suggestions.
Changes.
That's why it's mandatory to show prototypes, some kind of working prototypes, clickable prototypes where you can show like the actual environment, so he can get an idea what will be the actual, application be.
Right. So it's always good to have the MVP or the minimal viable product. So then it gives
gradually we can improve it.
So it gives the feedback to the customers as well. So I hope we answered your question, Chandana. So we got another question by Tushi. Question is, during the sprint, if the developers exceed the timeline, how a QA person handle the situation to deliver product on time?
What do you think, Shamal, in that scenario?
Yes.
In my scenario, Chamal, what happens is that this is purely based on the estimations. So when we are giving estimation, we have to make sure that we have properly understood the requirement. This happens most of the time.
Yes.
One reason can be that developer, why that person exceed more time. One can be that when we were giving the estimation, we didn't know about the technologies that we are going to use, the difficulties, the environments and everything. So this happens most of the time. So it's mandatory when if you are using Agile, we have backlog grooming. Where we are going to discuss estimations.
Right.
So it's a mandatory thing that the technologies, the way that we are going to deliver and everything is finalized when we are giving the estimations. And if the developer is already exceeding the timeline, then we have to raise it and we have to raise it to the customer in advance.
Okay.
And telling, okay, then, and we have to, during the grooming and planning, we have to make sure that if the product backlog item is too long, I mean, it's too large, we have to put it into chunks, manageable chunks. Yeah.
Right. So we hope that we answered the question to Tuchi as well. So we got another couple of more questions. This one is posted by Rashmi. What are the special key factors to be focused to avoid a bug leakage during a testing? Special key factors to be focused to avoid a bug leakage during a testing. I think that also comes with the requirement, because if you have the finalized requirement, then we can have it and we can continue with it. Yeah.
There are also, what I can tell you is that key factors are actually when you're testing a bug, what we normally do is that we assume that the developer has fixed a bug.
Yeah.
So we do pairwise testing.
Yes.
Have you heard the term pairwise testing?
Pair testing, yes.
Yes. The pair testing is something like you, so as an example, if you are the developer, once you have fixed the bug there, I go and check with your machine the requirement first. So whether it has been developed, whether it has been fixed properly.
Fixed properly, yes.
And then I ask the developer what kind of areas you touched to change this bug fix.
Right.
So as an example, that person might say, okay, I touched this area, I changed this file, and then you can ask, okay, what other areas are using this file, this method. So then you can get to know what kind of other areas are getting impacted due to this change. So basically, few things that you do is that once you verify the bug, do the first testing, that is the bug is fixed, then do some ad hoc testing around other impacted areas.
Yes.
These impacted areas can be known by talking to the developer what kind of areas that they have touched.
Because he knows the exactly areas which touches. So we got so we have answered the question by Rashmi, and we have another question by Atma. If we do not have a requirement documents, what is the best way to gather details to create test cases? So we don't have the requirement documents, and what is the best way to create the test cases?
There are also, what my suggestion is that, so actually QA guys, we need to streamline the process.
Yes.
So, so it's not ad hoc testing that we should do. So if you are writing the test case without the requirements, so basically if the requirements are getting changed again and again, you have to put some time to refactor the test cases. It's a kind of an additional effort that you have to put.
Right. Yeah.
So what you should do is, in this case, Atma, what I suggest you to do is that this is a kind of a situation where you have to involve and streamline the process.
Yes.
At least get the requirement. If there is no specific requirement document, at least by an email or something, get the requirement clarified. And before writing the test case, you sit with the developer or maybe with the customer and say, okay, this is the requirement I have understood.
Yeah.
Is this correct?
Correct.
Once you get the confirmation, you can go ahead with the test case writing.
Right.
Otherwise, you will be in trouble. Whenever they change the requirement again, you have to refactor the test cases again and again.
Right.
And one best way is that don't keep it as emails. If you get the requirements in emails, make sure you put in somewhere a location where you can manage, because there should be traceability.
Yes.
When you write the test cases, you should have mapping requirements. To which test requirements you are going to write the test cases.
Right.
So basically that kind of mapping is required.
Yes, you might not have a typical requirement documents like we had in the previous years, but you might at least have it in a simple format that this is the requirement.
It can be a Word document, it can be an Excel sheet with the requirements. Maybe you can put requirements numbers and map it with your test cases.
Yes.
Then when you look at a test case, you know, okay, I have covered this requirement.
Right.
Likewise, you can map them.
Yeah. Having this kind of document is that you can actually link it, or you can use that as a baseline document because it would be an advantage for you. So we have one last question by Rasan. Briefly explain how to add quality assurance engineering to an existing product or ongoing project.
Yes. For this, actually, if you do not have QA team specifically for a project, actually sometimes you can start it with the developers.
Yes.
Basically, some simple things that we discussed.
Right.
So when you are writing a simple chunk of code, integrate unit testing. Right? Make sure that your units are working fine. Then integration testing. Do proper code reviews. Right? So you can make sure that you are using the correct way and you have implemented it in a correct way. Unit testing, integration testing, code reviews, root cause analysis. So basically root cause analysis, what we do is that if you have found any bugs, you find what is the reason.
Right.
So as an example, assume that I forgot to implement a button. Right? Root cause for that button, I can say, okay, the button was not implemented there, but that is not the root cause.
That is not.
You have to ask 5 whys. If you say button was not there, then again you have to ask why was the button not there. Then I forgot it. Why did you forget it? Because it was not captured in the requirement. So likewise, if you ask 5 whys, ultimately you will go to the root why it actually happened. Actually the reason was it was not captured.
Right.
Sometimes maybe you don't know. You don't have the domain knowledge. So likewise, you can do the root cause analysis and see the gaps and try to mitigate them.
Yes.
And the other thing is, you have to do the reviews on the technical designs and architecture and everything and requirements. You have to review the requirements. So basically, you can start by them and do the process.
Right. So hope we have answered the question by Rasan, and we have one
more question
by Tushi. Can we go only with the automation, or is it must to do manual testing? I think that is a common question that we usually get it, because in order to have the automation in place, you need to have a established process or established product. So it's always good that you can do with the automation testing, but I think manual testing will still be there.
Yes, automation will ease your work. As an example, so when you say that as there are some scenarios that you can't automate, where you need human intervention.
Yes.
Some scenarios, as an example, okay, if you put 1 plus 2, then output is 3. It's simple, you can automate.
Right.
But apart from that, you have to check the UI, you have to check the UX, and you have to check the alignments and everything. So those things, it's pretty difficult sometimes to automate it, because with the resolutions and all, it changes.
ROI, you need to make sure the ROI
and
the
yes,
automation.
and so basically you have to have both manual testing and automation. Automation comes handy when it's about to regression testing. So what the process is normally, when we get a requirement, when we get a particular feature to be developed, we write test cases, we execute them manually. Then once that feature is stable, once that feature is totally completed, then the automation guy can automate it.
Yes.
So the reason why we have that automation test suite is, assume later we got a bug.
Yes.
And the developer is said, guys, due to this bug, some areas can be impacted. So we don't need to execute them again and again.
Yes.
Because we have an automation suite, we can simply run the automation suite and do it. Yeah. And when we need to do a release, the regression suite can be automated. So there are scenarios you have to do both manual testing and automation testing.
Yes. So hope we have answered your question, Tushi. So basically you can't do only with the automation, so it's always good to have the manual testing as well. We have another question from Nilushi. Can you please briefly explain, if deadline is near but we don't have a stable build or release for testing, then how to prioritize what should we test and not? A common problem that we all have, I think.
Yeah, so there are a few things. Tama, what do you suggest?
Yes, prioritization. Test case prioritization.
So
is the best
this is where you need to do risk-based testing.
Yes.
So basically, you should understand the flows that the customers will access most, and what are the business priority scenarios.
Most important areas.
Most important areas. And prioritize them like high priority, low priority, medium priority.
Yes.
Right. Then we can focus on the high priority one, but still I recommend Nilushi in this scenario. If assume that you need to give the build next week, but still if the development guys are doing development there's a high risk. Assume that you tested this module today, and if they fix a bug and that area next week, going to fix, and if that impact yours that area which is already tested by you, you might unnoticedly that one bug can be released to live production. So what my suggestion is that this is a situation that you should raise risk that you should raise a risk that regarding the product quality.
Right.
Because you are in a tense situation that the development is still being done and it is not stable, and you should be able to tell that okay, we can't release this.
Yes.
Basically, you should have a proper process.
Yes.
Because we recommend when you're doing the regression testing, the code should be frozen.
Yes.
No changes to be done, and if any change to be done, that need to be taken by a decision. Okay, whether we need to do this or not by looking at the impacted areas.
Right. So answer your question, Nilushi, is you need to do the risk-based testing and do the prioritization.
And you have to think about the risks and issues. Right. So I think with that we have answered most of the question, and I think you can write us or contact us if you need any further clarifications. Maybe I think our organizing team can share then the contacts if they need any assistance from us. So then you can directly contact us and get the support. Since we have limited time and we have ran out of time, so we are going to conclude the session. So finally, what we have to tell you guys is,
be the change.
Yeah, be the change that you wish to see in the world. So basically, it starts from you. Yes. So no point of listening to so many speeches, inspirational talks, or anything if we don't change ourselves.
Yeah.
So don't try to be a tester who is just doing functional testing. Move out of your comfort zone, break your boundaries, understand your customers' business requirement, understand what they really want, and try to understand the user and give them what they want, not what we want to develop.
Yes.
Right? So with that, I think we can conclude our session, and I think we had a wonderful session today. And if you have questions, as I said, you can come back to us. Yeah.
Yes.
So we can wind it up.
Yes. Thanks for joining.
Thanks, guys.